Startups begin in communities across the country.
Why does Silicon Valley get so much credit? My name is Nick Kastner.
And I'm Caitlin Clays. We're interviewing the people building startup communities across America.
But in the areas no one is talking about, the middle.
This is the Ecosystem Builder Podcast by mug.news. This is the Ecosystem Builder Podcast. Ecosystem building is the subset of economic development that focuses on fostering activity in a community. Today's guest is Tracy James. She is based in St. Louis and is currently working for Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I really do appreciate it.
Of course.
It's a real honor to be here with you today.
Well, jumping into my first question is, how did you first become involved in your startup community?
Wow. It's been 5 years. Actually, this month, I had been an attorney working in St. Louis since 2003, actually 2002, and had been an in-house attorney working for a university. I had been working for an employment law firm, a boutique law firm here. I had also been on my own since the recession, having my own practice. And so I mainly dealt with corporate law, like employment law, nonprofit law, contracts, real estate, basically all of those, a little bit trademark. So, working for a university kind of gave me a lot of broad knowledge over, a wide area. So when I saw that there was an opening for the head of the Community Economic Development Program at Legal Services, I jumped at the opportunity. I had worked with underserved communities before going to law school. And this was a peak time to really kind of get in my feet wet more thoroughly with helping people start businesses and grow their businesses and nonprofits. I was hired 5 years ago this month, and it's been kind of a whirlwind experience since then.
Congratulations. So my other question then was, when you were working with those communities, was it St. Louis specifically, or were you around the state when you were working?
Before I became working at Legal Services, I was in St. Louis, but prior to going to law school, I went to law school at University of Nebraska, which is a land-grant college in Lincoln, Nebraska. I was there, and then also I grew up in Houston, Texas. And so I was around underserved communities in Houston for a couple of years before relocating to the Midwest, where I'm now, more or less.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, a fellow Texan. We talked a little bit off screen.
Yes.
And we just swapped places.
Exactly. I took your place and you took mine.
Yeah, trade you. Unfortunately, I kept the winter, though. Winter of 2020.
Sorry about that. That was not intended.
Yeah.
Like once in 100-year type of cold front down there.
Oh, no kidding. But yeah, I was like, feels like home.
Whether you like it or not.
Yep. So then,
right.
How do you support your local community?
Wow. Well, my local community, what we try and do, I run a staff of 5. I myself, 2 other attorneys, and then I have 2 paralegals that are more geographically centered. So one deals with St. Louis County in particular, and the other deals with St. Louis City and the other 21 or 20 counties that we manage in Eastern Missouri. And so what we do is that we're a community-based law firm, nonprofit law firm. And so we support people like technical assistance. So we either provide legal services for free to eligible people, or we do like any type of presentations and clinics to have them become or be interested in becoming a client of ours to help them get started with their legal needs for a business or nonprofit. Then we also we try and focus our attention on anchor institutions and agencies that are in the community that are reaching out to underserved mainly minority communities in St. Louis. And so we relate to those anchor institutions, whether it's a church or a library, or it's a nonprofit doing community development in that area. We reach out to them. We tell them what we're doing. We offer some training for their staff, perhaps, to kind of get them oriented to what we do. And then we also offer presentations and legal clinics where people can come in and ask an attorney a question about their startup or what's happening. And so that's kind of how we've done it. And that's how we connect with the community. It's just very interesting because I think St. Louis likes to see itself, like Kansas City, in the Midwest as a tech hub, and that's kind of an area that we don't necessarily get involved with. So we deal with everything else that tech. I mean, we can deal with tech, but because of our client base, I believe that we deal more with micro businesses, like mom and pop businesses.
So already hearing about your story and what you do, it sounds like very inclusive, communicative,
Yes.
and informative. Those are some
Right.
keywords that are kind of coming out to me. And half of the fear too from like these mom and pop shops, I've noticed from other ecosystem builders that have said they don't call themselves entrepreneurs because the term is so daunting. It's like, no, I just have
Yes.
my business. I'm not an entrepreneur. But I think that it is, and I know that it is very important to have the workshops that you host and to give information, because that is, again, one of the struggles is just that knowing jargon even is a little bit tricky to have that barrier.
Right. I think there's a lot of barriers out there for would-be business owners. They might not think of themselves, as you said, as entrepreneurs. I mean, I kind of take it back to the very, very micro level of maybe when you're a kid and starting a lemonade stand. And you just decide to do it on a hot summer day. Hopefully it's a hot summer day, and you want to make some pocket change. And you go out there and you advertise, a lemonade stand, either, for yourself, or maybe you're doing this for veterans or for someone else, and it's a really good venture, and that's like a nonprofit, right? So, people think of that, well, they're not really in business. But I mean, business people I guess they don't like to think of themselves as out there. I mean, they're just working very, very hard, trying to put money in their bank and food on the table for their family and create wealth for themselves. So, yeah. So, I mean, it's very interesting just because I also believe that, entrepreneur is a big word. And to break it down into someone who has an idea and they know that there's a market for it, and maybe they have a product or a service that they're offering, and they want to do that, and they feel that they're really maybe best in what they're doing. And maybe running a business might not be something that they've learned to do. Maybe they haven't gone to school for it. So, I mean, it can be daunting, especially when you hear a lot about hedge fund investors and you hear about, angel investors and a lot of things that are bandied about in popular culture. And so, I just see people as wanting to kind of create something new and create something sustainable and maybe, provide something for their families that they can sustain.
Certainly. So, you're talking about informing, educating. So what is one thing people don't know about your ecosystem?
Our ecosystem is basically one that, it's a free one, but the ecosystem is, and what we offer is great, but it's kind of a subset. What I was saying is that we really don't deal with tech. We deal with communities that are mainly minority. About 88% of our clients are Black or immigrant entrepreneurs. And so they don't necessarily have maybe the formal education. They might not have the networking or know where they need to network or to reach out to get funding and to understand opportunities. And so I think that's an area that's kind of a subset that's going on. I mean, we know there's a lot of businesses, I think small businesses in the United States, especially in Missouri and St. Louis, that are maybe not on the radar. And so they're providing a lot of services for maybe a small group of people. But they're doing okay. They're eking out an existence, and that's where we're trying to kind of meet that need, so that they do not make. You have these serial entrepreneurs that continually they make mistakes, and they might have a failed business, and they learn from mistakes, and they build another one, and they kind of go on and on. So we want to make sure that they learn from the first part, so they don't make these costly and time-consuming mistakes early on. So we're trying to be preventative in avoiding mistakes at all possible. So I guess education is part of it. Trying to eliminate any barriers between what people might perceive with attorneys, being maybe formal or stuffy, or just behind a desk, and kind of the I want to say like from the 1980s or 1990s, like LA Law or something like that, or Law and Order. I mean, we're very different. That lawyers are there to help, and just like business counselors and accountants, that we're kind of that three-part of a stool that we will offer support for those entrepreneurs to really succeed.
That is one of the reasons that, not to speak highly, like the podcast is meant to take down some of those barriers, those fears. And that's especially why we really encourage entrepreneurs to listen to the podcast, because we get to meet people like you, where attorney, a scary word, it's not like that. Same with like libraries, like Mel Lambert, which is how we met, is through Mel Lambert, who had an episode here on the show. But again, libraries, things that you wouldn't necessarily assume or know much about. And so I'm really, again, happy to have you on the show, where we're kind of debunking some of those stereotypes of the 80s, scary law.
Right, exactly. And what's so interesting, especially in the St. Louis area, is that you hear a lot about, there's a tech area called Cortex Innovation District in St. Louis. It's a tech hub, and Cortex itself is a nonprofit, and they are there to try and help those, especially in the tech or bioscience area, to really kind of build an ecosystem here and really develop their ideas and employ people. And it does take a certain type of person, I think, that has those connections, that type of network, that type of funding to really kind of do that. But there really is another ecosystem behind all of that, where, the world of Eventbrite in the area, as well as libraries and churches, and, community financial development institutions, CDFIs. I want to give a shout out to like Justine Peterson, for instance. It's really, really good. Or those that are business centers that are in St. Louis County, let's say like Ferguson or Michael Brown. Really kind of all of that took place. I think a lot with Black Lives Matter is really kind of something that's really near and dear to what we do in our community. So it's very different than maybe your mainstream, what you think of. But I think there are a lot of different organizations out there that can be very helpful. Like you said, Mel Lambert, who's with Kirkwood, in the St. Louis County Library, the St. Louis Public Library. There's just a lot of wonderful resources out there that people just don't know that's free. With a library card or whatever, that they can walk in at very low cost. So helping to debunk all of that would be great.
Of course. So, speaking of resources, and you had mentioned hedge fund, angel investors, my next question then is, if someone were to start a business in your community, are they eligible for any local grants or interest-free loans?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, there are, especially because of the pandemic, there's a lot of negatives that have happened because of the COVID pandemic. It's been over a year now that, there are a lot of businesses that have not been able to succeed or just really struggling. And so there's a couple of government grants that are out there, one with the city, and then also one in conjunction with the city and the county, that offer new businesses some interest-free grants, and also or interest-free loans as well as grants. Obviously, the big one is with the Small Business Administration, the SBA's PPP program that I think that they're trying to extend through May to try and handle or process all of the applications. And there's, of course, there was the EIDL program for those that have suffered economic injury. But yeah, when you come into St. Louis, I mean, there's some Missouri, there's also St. Louis resources. We have them on our website at www.lscm.org. If you kind of check the COVID resources section that talk about it. But I mean, I could be able to give you, something, that you can maybe put in the podcast later of how to contact some of these organizations, or to try and see if what grants or interest-free loans that people are available for. I'll give you links for them.
Yes, we'd be happy to put those in the show notes.
Great. Excellent. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Then if someone were to move to your community, well, wait, I have one question before I ask my next one. So you brought up the topic of COVID, and you're absolutely correct that the government is trying to jumpstart some of these businesses, keep the economy going. So there was a statement that I heard that in order for us to succeed and get out of this, is entrepreneurs are the future, and business owners, mom and pop shops. Where's your head at with that? Do you have any statement of encouraging that statement? Where are your thoughts?
Oh, I believe so. I mean, I think America is fueled by small business. And I believe that, it's not the big corporations that run this country. It's really the mom and pop businesses around that are sustaining, that are leading, the economic engine here in the United States. And they employ more people than the big corporations combined. And so, yes, I believe that to really be successful and to leading us out of this pandemic and to economic security is really at the small businesses. And, it's really interesting to see during this time how the pandemic has shaped a lot of them. We've had some businesses that were struggling with their leases and such to try and help them out of it as much as we could. But we found a lot of people who were thinking, maybe, most of our clients have a couple of jobs, and they are trying to kind of make ends meet, and that, starting a business was something that they maybe never had ever considered before. They had ideas, they knew how to do something well, but they thought, well, this is the time for me to kind of regroup and to kind of reassess where I'm at in my life. And I think starting a business might be it. And so I think that is really, the economic engine to kind of keep everyone going forward to get us out of this mess. If this is a mess, which I would say yes. So yes, I do agree that yes, small businesses, in particular entrepreneurs, are the way to getting us to a more secure future.
For sharing your thoughts on that. I figured that would be a good, you brought COVID up, and so I figured that would be a good one to ask. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. I would love to think that COVID is behind us, but I do believe that the COVID practices, things that we've had to kind of adapt to during this pandemic has kind of thought about what are the standards anymore. I mean, yes, we need to be relational in our business dealings and how we interact and network with people. But, I think the digital, doing things remotely, virtually on the internet is here to stay, as well as, just finding ways of adapting and very quickly, adapting to new technology that maybe we weren't thinking that we were ready for. Going paperless, or not dealing with as much paper as possible. I think there's so many different changes with our communities and how we've had to adapt, that I think it's been great for businesses.
Absolutely. You brought up Eventbrite. Eventbrite has taken off with the virtual meetings. And there's so much that has changed. Pandemic has not been great, but the technological advances and connectivity, we're already connected through social media. Everyone, people have been saying, yes, we're more connected than we've been in the past. But it's almost become that for business, whereas before it was more social, with family members. Now it's bled into business as well. And so Scott Henderson, who was also on the show, had mentioned that he'd closed some pretty expensive deals without ever having been in the same room with people. So
Right.
businesses are networking, connecting, and it's all been done virtually in some cases. So
Right. Right.
silver linings, because we have to find them. Otherwise, what else are we going to do?
Right, exactly. I mean, we have to think positively. I think entrepreneurs in particular have a very positive go get 'em mindset in general, that they are able to dream the impossible and make it happen. So I do have a lot of faith in our business owners that, there's dreams that they can realize that, didn't think possible. I mean, who thought of like 20, 30 years ago of even self-driving cars or anything like that? So, go figure, there's the Steve Jobs of the world. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's really, really important. I found that, we had kind of a stumbling block when this happened, where most of our meetings, our presentations, our clinics were all in person. And we found that a lot of it had been able to shift, and we were able to reach a lot more people through Facebook Live, through Eventbrite, through some of these other, through Zoom, through these other platforms that were maybe not otherwise thought possible. So it's a wonderful and refreshing way to do it. And I found that all of our I think we did over 100 different events last year during the pandemic, and we had to do it virtually, which was great. I mean, the year before we did like 165 events, as well as our own caseload of clients and such, to try and reach out to the community. And I think, it's just a little dip, but I think our volunteer attorneys, whom we have over 350 volunteer attorneys who have signed up to help our clients, our community, with their legal needs. I mean, they really like this virtual thing. It's like not having to go to the office, right? There is some what do you call it? There's some obviously things not being in person, not understanding, you get that Zoom exhaustion from the meetings, et cetera. But I think there are a lot of positives, and I think that a lot of people have adapted very well.
So if someone were to move to your community tomorrow and wanted to start a business, what would you suggest the first thing they do be?
Oh, my goodness gracious. I think if they moved to the community and they wanted to start a business, there was, I'd say there's like 4 or 5 things. But one thing that I'm very adamant about is to have a plan, a business plan. And I believe that I always tell people, and it's very trite, but I think it's true, is that if you don't plan, you fail. If you don't plan for something, you don't plan your business, you will fail. So fail to plan is planning to fail. So that's how I see it, that even if it doesn't have to be fancy, it could be on some loose leaf paper. It doesn't have to be thorough, like, a 300, slide, slide deck, 300 slides of something to show what you're going to be doing. But as long as you have a plan, your market. Part of this is like, okay, what are you offering? Is there a market for it? Right. I'm not a business counselor, but I believe that's kind of the starting blocks of knowing what you want to sell, or what you want to provide, those opportunities, and knowing that there's a market in the area for it. Knowing your market is really important. Knowing if there is a need for it, knowing what you need to have, knowing how much it's going to take. I think those are very, very important. But yeah, I think it's really doing some research ahead of time before you kind of start doing things. And I think the libraries are a really good source of inspiration. A lot of them have business resource centers, where you can ask a business reference librarian for some help, and they can kind of give you, some information, whether it's, market research, or if you're looking to spend a lot of money, to understand what a budget is. I think that is all very, very key. That's what I would say is the takeaway. And then the next thing is, okay, what's out there? Really getting connected with the local community and understanding networking, because networking is a really big way to kind of introduce yourself into a community and to feel acceptance. And And if you don't know your community, then it's going to be hard for you to be successful, I think.
And that's one nice thing is through like Eventbrite, through podcasting. Podcasts have gotten huge, like massive. Everyone has a podcast nowadays.
Yes. I had a former coworker who had a podcast. So I mean, it's just amazing. All the different podcasts out there. And I think that's just wonderful, like self-publishing, or having blogs, like in the 90s and the early 2000s, having blogs. Podcasting is very much out there because it's very mobile. It's very, and you can just take it up. It's something that just have out there. So like what you have providing today, you doesn't have to go through a particular network or a particular system in order to publish, which is fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things is that people are able to move based on doing their research through listening to podcasts, reading the blogs that are out there. That's one thing that's very appreciated. And I imagine, so for example, St. Louis is what I've always had a soft place in my heart for St. Louis. And so from this opportunity, I even get to learn. And so if I were to choose to move somewhere, I feel like listening to a show like this or listening to other shows that are based in St. Louis, for example,
right,
that's a great way to do research. So again, and then absolutely what you said with libraries and talking to Mel Lambert, it's we love libraries. That's the
right. I mean, I did not realize it's not just to do library books or to have summer reading programs for kids during the summer. To keep their skills up or to keep out of boredom, but it's really kind of you can learn gardening tips. You can learn, things, dress for success. You can learn all sorts of things, whether it's, understanding market research or, marketing in particular, or understanding lending. There's just a lot out there. So yeah, I mean, I think Eventbrite podcasts are really important. Our organization, our program, what we offer, there's a lot of programs that are free, that are out there for the public, that are advertised through Eventbrite, who are advertised on different websites where we try and cross list as much as possible. I mean, that's part of our success since 2011, when this was started, when this program was started. That we reach out to community partners, and they are the lifeblood of the community. I mean, whether we have an incubator or we have a women's business center trying to help, get the business skills and offer classes and things like that, or banks can offer a lot of great programs through these different organizations as well. So yeah, there's a lot out there. And I think part of it is just trying to do a Google search is probably the easiest way to do it.
Sort of like answered my next question, which would be, where would someone go to learn more about upcoming events? So you'd already said Eventbrite, you do reach out, Google searching. Do you have anything else that you'd like to recommend?
Oh my gosh. I have like a 4-page, I as a former educator, I'm always into educating, and I have lots of what they say checklists, like, 30 plus checklists that on different areas of the law, as well as resources and materials for our client community. And I would say that there's a couple of things that I was going to try and tease this out if I can find it. I would also say, let's see, I'm trying to think of what are the ones that I had. I was just trying to look at it all. So yeah, we have business counseling. St. Louis County Library is one. St. Louis Public Library has another. Kirkwood, the Foundation Center, that's actually through all of the libraries. The SBA, the Missouri Department of Economic Development, Cortex Venture Cafe. So I mentioned Cortex as a nonprofit that mainly deals with or has dealt with tech startups, biosciences, et cetera. But they also have a wonderful library of resources, and you can find that on their website to try and access. They have a lot of interesting organizations like, a 1 million cups, trying to get together and network through 1 million cups of coffee. Venture Cafe has lots of things on a Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening of little tidbits. It's like little TED Talks that used to be in person. I guess they'll be in person again. Let's see, Missouri Source Link, Entrepreneur Quarterly, Justine Peterson, Arch Grants. So there's a lot of different things in the ecosystem here, whether it's incubators or business counselors or understanding fundraising or getting funding. So yeah, all of those I think are really, really important. But yeah, I would check first and foremost the libraries, Eventbrite. We send out a newsletter to our clients every month, and we just sent one out today. And we try and get as many different resource, events from all our community partners. We have over 60 of them, 35 that are active, that we find out information and we try and pass it on to our community. And, maybe something helps for them. I just don't know. But, it doesn't hurt unless they explore it.
So being as well connected as you are, what are the most successful or notable startups from your community that you
notable startups from our community in general would be oh my gosh, I'm trying to think of some that I just lost it. But I think of smaller ones, but there is, the technology, I want to say WWT, Worldwide Technology, is a notable startup here in St. Louis. There are some construction firms that are big. I think of are some of our own clients who I can't necessarily name, but those are, some nonprofits. Like we have one that's a nonprofit out there that is doing a lot of micro lending through different, I want to say, religious communities, kind of spans, I don't know, Christian, Jewish, maybe even some Muslim communities to try and work together and offer microloans in central St. Louis. There's also, I can kind of talk about some of our notable, nonprofits or notable businesses that we've helped start. Let's say someone who started a popcorn business out of a backseat of their cab, and so they've grown that, and they've had it on online. We've had some kid entrepreneurs that are selling some things that have been very successful. I believe we also have another child entrepreneur that is supposed to be at some point on a national television reality TV competition. So I'm hoping that they will be, and that's just kind of exciting to see that, some of those that are unnamed heroes, and I can't say that legally, but I would just think that there's a lot of them out there, like Build-A-Bear, like Maxine Clark of Build-A-Bear is another notable startup example from the St. Louis community, not necessarily our client, but just saying that there's a lot of people out that do a lot of hard work that I can't necessarily name, but that they're just there, and they might be adding a lot more people to their roles and expanding their business. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't know that Build-A-Bear was from St. Louis. The coveted Build-A-Bear as a kid. It's like,
yeah, yeah. I always think of the Cardinals, but that's not a. It's hard when we had opening day yesterday at the stadium. So that's always a big point of St. Louis pride. But there's just some small entrepreneurs that have grown big. There's I don't necessarily think about the big ones right now, just because we're so focused on the micro. So some of our micro businesses that have been just wonderful. Single Black mothers who are trying to kind of get ahead, and they've done some things. As I said, had one client who started her popcorn business in the back of her cab, and just as doing this and she has her popcorn business in many different stores now. Some barbecue sauce, some barbecue restaurants, a lot of food trucks that have been some of our clients. So they might serve others who serve others. So
we've been talking about how you provide education, information, workshops, presentations, and you talk about underserved communities. So then my other question is, if you didn't mention before, but how do you include diversity in your ecosystem? In addition, and if we talked about it already, that's great, but I just wanted to ask again.
Yeah, how we build diversity in our ecosystem is that part of our program is that it's free. And so we do that attraction through reaching out into the community as community lawyering, right? And so we try and get people, or we try and invite people to become clients of ours. And the majority of our clients are 88% of them are Black. Also, a lot of Syrian entrepreneurs, Syrian refugees are a big portion of our clients. And part of it that they're able to become our clients, where we either do the representation, we do the legal work, the entity formation, contract review, real estate, trademark, some of those things, employment matters. We do that for them. They have to be no more than 300% above the federal poverty level for the household size, and they can't have more than $7,500 in savings. Or if they're a nonprofit, they have to probably target people in our service area, and they cannot themselves have money to provide for legal services. So we have to see a budget and a business plan for all of our clients. So it really kind of shuts out a lot of people who, we're very, very much an urban resource. We really haven't done a lot in the rural areas. And so that tends to be a lot of people who are African American, who are Latino or Hispanic. And as I said, a lot of immigrants, a lot of Syrian immigrants who might have had businesses in their home country, and they're trying to get their foot back in here, learning the language, understanding the processes and the legal systems and all of that. And so we are very proud that we have such a large minority community whom we work with, as well as, at least I would say 20% or 40% of our staff are African American themselves. And so, that they are able to really reach out, or they are from the community in which they serve. And so we're very proud, and we're very committed to diversity in the system. I think there's so many opportunities for, I want to say, the white or majority community in the St. Louis area, through the universities, through networking, through, all these things pre-COVID. And there's just really not that much offered for the underrepresented, underserved community. And so that's what we're trying to kind of focus on. And we do a lot of things at Legal Services that try and focus on diversity, and also trying to understand equity, and trying to eliminate racism in our everyday lives, as well as with the communities that we reach.
Creating opportunities for people to come to the table, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is thank you for sharing more about that, and more of those statistics of who you're helping and how you're doing it.
Right. Right.
You're absolutely correct. Just logistically, there are more opportunities for, people Caucasian and significantly less. So it's very important, again, that we're being inclusive moving forward in society as well as in politics. So,
I mean, it's really important because, part of the problem is that people who are eligible for our services, they are the ones who most likely don't have the funding in order to get their businesses to sustain it, or go to the next level, or to expand, or that maybe they're unbanked. They do not have a bank account, or they are very unfamiliar with lending practices. And so it's been very hard for us to try especially we're grant driven. We rely on grants and funding like that in order to continue the work. And so part of the answers are, okay, what are the outcomes? You've helped a business, who is so-and-so? A lot of times we are there at the very beginning, or towards the beginning of a business's inception, and as they're getting it organized. And then, the hope is that they will be successful, so that they they can afford legal help, and that we're no longer relevant. But it's a very long runway to get there. And so we might not see them hiring new people, or getting a retail location, or more retail locations, or expanding. So we don't see that very often. And we just would love to be able to see that later on. But I do think that in this community, in this micro community, there is a lot of opportunity for lending and to try and get some funding into the community that maybe it is so, I guess, shut out because of redlining. Our government's policy in redlining since the 1930s. So that's something that we're trying to very proactively work on. We have a banking guide trying to give all the information on the different banks. Next month in May, we're doing a 4-part series with Grace Hill Women's Business Center on banking and understanding a business plan, understanding what a banker is looking for, what you need to get a loan, and the life of a loan, and the life, of having that banking relationship, which I think is so important. It's not just the legal stuff. We want them to be out of the courts as much as possible and really being successful.
In order to support that success, we've talked about how you really need to do your research. And so One of my last questions is, are there any news outlets, podcasts, blogs that you recommend people check out for St. Louis?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd say first and foremost, you want to go ahead and get on the newsletters for Cortex, for Venture Cafe. I would say Missouri Source Link is another one. I would look at the Women's Business Center. I would look at Justine Peterson. I would look at Eventbrite is part of that. I mean, newsletters are really important because you're able to see what is going on in the area and what they're doing. So once you get on a couple of these newsletter, understanding the podcast or understanding your website, understanding what the newsletters are, then you add on more. And so there's a lot more going for it that you can get other newsletters that way. So I would say just keep your ear to the ground. I think Cortex is a really good one to start with. They have, as I said, maybe 5, 6, 7 different entrepreneurial type organizations that are attached to them that each of themselves would have newsletters. There's some great incubators out there that offer very low cost office share. I'd say there's like 14 or 15 out there. That would be very good. Also, the St. Louis entrepreneur community is pretty, it's pretty widespread. And if you do get on these sites and such, then you'll be able to kind of do a rabbit hole and continue finding it. But again, you can go to our website and you can look at some of these things, which is at www.lscm.org. There's also some, I cannot say enough good things about the area libraries and their business centers. There's also the Veterans Business Resource Center that might be offering some things. Let's see, Arch Grants is another one. Let's see what else. I'm trying to think of. There's CAB, the Center for Acceleration of African American Businesses. There's the St. Louis Venture Works, some business incubator network. There's Social Synergy Project that is in the city that offers a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, you can get kind of plugged into, University of Missouri St. Louis, their entrepreneur program would be another one to kind of find out what is happening in the St. Louis area, as well as I think Missouri, as I said, Missouri Source Link is a great network to see all the different areas in Missouri where you can kind of get plugged in and get more information.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming onto the show. Before we completely close out, I wanted to ask if you have any final thoughts before we head our separate ways.
Well, I was just saying is that if they're, that's the interesting thing about working with entrepreneurs themselves is that they are very resourceful. They are constantly doing 5 million different things. And, if they're able to kind of to listen to this podcast and be part of it, they're probably doing about 2 other things at the same time. And multitasking is definitely in their wheelhouse. But yeah, I would just say is that, if you're not sure, always check to see if you find a business counselor through SCORE if you need to, or some of the other business resource centers that might be free or very low cost. The libraries, finding a good accountant, a business counselor, and also a lawyer. And it depends on your neighborhood. or where you're at, if there's a legal aid, like Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, that offers, as I say, special forces type of program like micro enterprise to help people with their legal needs. So yeah, I would just say is that do your research, pay attention, ask a lot of questions.
Thank you again. We really appreciate your time and coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I appreciate it. And it was great talking to you, and thank you again.
Now that we've learned about an ecosystem from a person who's building it, I'm going to link back up with Nick to clarify on some jargon and take a deeper dive into this ecosystem.
Caitlin, how was your interview with Shelly Pash?
It was great. I had a blast. She is so fun and bubbly to talk to, so I'm sure you can definitely tell throughout the interview. It was just a great time.
Amazing. What was one or some of your biggest takeaways from the conversation?
Well, one of my biggest takeaways was that she is definitely, personality-wise, she is very hands-on in helping people develop their ideas. So we were going along with a bit of Caitlin starting a coffee and wine shop or something, but it was interesting to get to hear her almost advise. And so while she was just choosing to make a point, it was still along the lines of, I can see how you help your community, and I can see hands-on how you are actively supporting those around you. So in all of her answers, she answered them in so much detail that I really felt like she truly was trying to advise someone on how to grow her business. So she had some invaluable information from Network Kansas.
Yes, yeah. So that Caitlin Clay's ran coffee and wine shop, I would attend. I would go. So
it'd be a blast. We'd have a bunch of comic books. We can put some of our favorite books on the bookshelves. Nick and Caitlin's favorite books only.
Oh yes, hell yes. And it would only be our books. No other books allowed.
Or we could do a runoff where it's like, if you came on the podcast, you can recommend one book and we'll put it on the show.
Ooh, I like it. Was there anything you had to look up after the conversation with Shelly?
No, I didn't have much to look up. But I guess I suppose to do more research on Shelly, I saw she has had so many different hats and so many different roles in ecosystem building community, whether that was Network Kansas and then her other positions she's held in the past. So I guess looking up more about her and researching more about her was very interesting to see how many roles people have and successful ecosystem builders have. So I just thought that was an interesting observation and interesting moving forward when we look at other guests and everything like that.
Yes, solid insight. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on from the conversation?
Just a quick plug. Her and Don Mackey have a podcast as well, and we actually had Don Mackey on the show, so that was really fun to have a little reunion tour. That's what I thought of it as. But that's all I have, Nick. If you have anything else, you can go ahead and read us out.
Perfect. Well, thank you for listening to today's episode of the Ecosystem Builder Podcast, which is a product of mug.news and hosted by myself, Nick Kastner, and my co-host, Caitlin Clays. If you have any questions about today's episode, connect with us on Twitter at Nick Kastner, at Clays Creates, or at MugNewsOfficial. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share with your friends. We release episodes every single Wednesday morning, so make sure to follow so you don't miss a beat.